Welcome. This is Corey S. on the Bull City Bulletin, joined with Eric B. for our fourth live episode. It's June 8th, 2014, and we've got a lot of ground to cover because we haven't had a live episode in a few weeks. We have been working on the site, we're developing it and trying to push it to the next level, but also we had a lot of personal travel and work-related things that kept us from having another episode. So we try to fill the site with some other content, including some anonymous contributions from folks responding to a Craigslist ad that we had put out, as well as our first live interview with a guy named Randy Stroud, who spoke about the issue of freedom in America. Me personally, I've been on the other side of the planet for the last couple weeks. I was in Thailand and Japan, and I'd like to talk about some of my unique experiences going to that side of the world and how it relates to what we're seeing politically here in the United States, as well as some other local issues that I have wanted to talk about since noticing them just conducting my business here in Durham, North Carolina. So as far as Bull City Bulletin goes, we are still looking for writers and other folks of free thought who are interested in contributing to our blossoming news site. And you know, it can be in different forms. We got a contact request from a guy named Chris Chappell recently, who does a Muppet show here in the Triangle area, and you know, he covers his own issues. I think some of them like marijuana. He also covered weather modification, and Eric had actually spoken with him and gotten a small bio from him. Maybe you want to talk about that a little, Eric?
Yeah, he's just a person that's become awake to the con, you know, our enslavement, and he's just a regular dude. He's a musician. He fell into the puppet making by accident, and he has a real talent to it. He's definitely a real talent. And he sent me a link on locally here. They just approved to frack down this whole corridor down here locally and through his town in Franklin County. So, you know, it's just you know, just these insane power issues that we're under, that we think that we only can rely on fracking and nuclear energy and coal, when the real truth of it is that they had solar technology back in the early 20th century to power machines, and it was completely erased from history, as like with hemp.
Right.
As with our own self-sustainability as a society, less trying to be self-sustainable and supported independently as a free-thinking person. and we've used all these resources to fall into this con game of war and scarcity, and now we're in this hellish slave pit of mental illness, depravity, and where everyone is addicted to the mockingbird dream machine and television, and just mental illness and sociopathy, and it's just atrocious. It's atrocious on every level. So yeah, you know, the thing is, this whole thing is so gigantic. He's just one guy, you know, who's you know,
Fed up.
You know, he can't get employment, even though he has incredible talents. I mean, that's just a whole other subset of these creative beings that you know, produce art, music, and can't feed themselves, and we're really being cold, we're being herded, we're being manipulated through eugenicists who know more about us, knew more about our behaviors than we know ourselves, and that's really the whole gimmick.
Right, right. Now you talk about how the history has been perverted, and you know, from my perspective, I grew up here. I've lived here my entire life, and when I was in school, we were taught America's a free country. Well, little did I know that until 9/11, that the TSA had set up right down the road. You go to RDU, if you want to fly anywhere, you have to go through this horrendous security theater, as I like to call it. And I want to recount some of my experiences since we haven't had an episode in a while, and I've been doing a lot of traveling. I have had a lot of experiences with the TSA.
Let me ask you real quick,
yeah,
the contrast between, because what I think is important is people who travel, you know, get the incredible opportunity of actually seeing how the environment is, and then contrast it here in America, because America, we think we're just like this really free police state. Now, I've been around. This place is freer than Colombia or in Israel, you know, where I've been, but compared to Canada. But you went to China, so you know China's supposed to be our big enemy. Well, what was it like?
Right, right, yeah. So my trip was about 2 weeks long, and I went from RDU to New York to Hong Kong, then to Thailand, and then from Thailand to Japan, and then Japan to China, back to New York. So, you know, we're going to these so-called communist countries,
Right.
and where there's an authoritative police state, you know, and they have no human rights, allegedly.
Right.
Okay. But my journey started off in RDU, going through the Transportation Security Administration, which, by the way, was set up after 9/11, because obviously the private airlines cannot provide security to the customers.
How many terrorists have they caught?
None, as a matter of fact. So, actually, they know who I am. They monitor, I'm sure, all of my digital communications through the fusion centers and the NSA. And as evidence of that, I was wearing a cowboy hat on the way out, as any good American tourist would. And my fiance actually heard them over the speaker, the loudspeaker, refer to the man in a cowboy hat. And I ended up getting diverted into another line than her. And I make a habit of always refusing the naked body scanners, which give you cancer.
Right.
And so my option as a free citizen, you have freedom of choice. You can choose either an invasive pat-down that violates your Fourth Amendment rights, or you can go through this naked body scanner, which gives you cancer. So I always opt for the pat-down, because I'd rather, you know, be felt up by a disgusting old man than get cancer from a machine that is more powerful than an X-ray. So
it's always the lesser of two evils.
It's the lesser of two evils, you know. Compromise. It's just the way things are. I should get used to it, right? So you know, I've had other experiences I could go into, but you know, where I've challenged the pat-down procedure and all that. But you know, when I'm trying to get somewhere and I've, you know, got a big trip ahead of me, I just kind of have to submit. You know, unfortunately, we're put into this situation as Americans where we have to kind of put our tail between our legs sometimes, if we want to have any life at all, you know, and liberty. So
when in Rome, do as in Rome.
Right. So when in Rome, I got hooked up with this guy who looked like, if you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, he looked like the rapist who raped, was trying to rape Mel Gibson's wife. This old guy. And so, you know, I got my arms out, he's feeling my chest, literally says to me, somebody goes to the gym.
That's disgusting.
And I look at him and I'm like, that's creepy. I said, that's creepy. Like, what's wrong with you? So there was that.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I'm the terrorist here. So, you know, this is what we have to go through, and you know, if I go to the doctor and I'm getting a testicular exam, there's never a comment like that. They have someone else in the room. They have privacy screens and stuff. And this is all based on the idea that I may have some plastic explosives on me or whatever, you know. By the way, I've been to jail too, and the jail exam is less invasive than the than what you have to go through just to fly domestically in the United States.
That's right.
Okay. So, you know, then we go to.
They're also beyond looking for chemical bomb explosives. They're screening you for behavior. Right,
and they actually say that. I have an image of a poster, an advertisement in a New York airport where they have a naval officer who went from the Navy to the TSA, and he is cited as being a behavioral examination or behavioral analyst.
Absolutely.
In the TSA, and so they're basically assuming that because you walk a certain way or you talk a certain way or you've said something online that you're a potential domestic terrorist. So,
absolutely.
You know, what's fascinating is I go from America, the land of the free. I go from RDU to New York City, the capital city of America, basically the most well-known city on the planet. And I have to go through just a melange of other security checks before I can actually go to my flight to Hong Kong. Now I get to Hong Kong, and there's a glistening airport. Now you mentioned the environment earlier. I think you were just talking about the logistics of security and airports and stuff. But as far as the environment's concerned, I flew into Hong Kong, and it seemed to be rather polluted.
Right.
And I think that's very egalitarian of the Chinese, where we can all breathe polluted air, and we can talk about that. How
you're gonna need our air. You're gonna need to buy our air and live under our domes.
Right, but not only that, but the whole factory situation, the power factories moving over to China. You know, we get rid of them here, and they get built in China.
Through our tax money.
Through our tax money, allegedly, because ours are dirty, but theirs are even dirtier. I mean,
and they do it there because no one's going to fight them. I mean, that's where all labor and production went to places where it would find the least resistance against human rights, against human relations. It's incredible stuff.
Right. So, I get to the Hong Kong airport, and we literally just, as foreigners, we're whisked right through. The staff was polite. They knew enough English to get us through. There weren't that many people there. At least the people who were there seemed to be routed efficiently. We had no hang-ups in security, and actually nobody touched us.
Wow.
Not a single. They just wanded us, and that was it. And then we were on our way to Thailand. But I had another experience I wanted to bring to the Bull City Bulletin broadcast. When I went from Thailand to Japan, I had to make a layover in Beijing. And we were riding on Air China from China to Japan. And I found this so fascinating. We were landing, and on the video screens they have in the airplane, they're playing videos for the clients, the customers as they land, and they had like China's funniest home videos and people getting hurt and that sort of thing like they would in America. But then they transitioned to it seemed to be very documentary-esque, but it had English subtitles. And they were playing a documentary to the mostly Chinese customers about the world financial system. And they went over the history of the U.S. dollar's rise to world reserve currency status and how after World War II they basically created the Bretton Woods Agreement, which linked dollar to the exchange rate with gold. It was like $35. And then they went into how this linkage to gold made the dollar become the world reserve currency, However, that link was broken in '71 when Nixon closed the gold window. And since that time, this is what the documentary was saying to the Chinese citizens, that since that time, the United States has more or less artificially benefited from this floating exchange rate with gold, where countries accept it as the world reserve currency, and we basically export inflation to them and get cheap consumer goods in return. And they said that, you know, the Americans have benefited from this system for years, and they talked about all the gold that was involved, the, you know, the gold that was taken by the United States after World War II to set this system up. And I was just blown away because this was casually presented on a LCD screen to Chinese airplane customers, and we don't even learn this history in school, in public school. They don't even cover this financial history when you're growing up. They teach you how to write, they teach you how to read, but they don't even talk about our own, you know, the meaning or the origin of a dollar, and yet
they know how to omit information and construct a program to create the very Americans that we see today that are completely oblivious to anything that's going on. It's really amazing stuff. This is absolute pure behaviorism, Skinner box type of stuff that they were doing in the 50s.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so difficult to even talk to anybody about this, is because we have been put into these Skinner boxes where,
right.
You know, you go outside of that artificial wall that's created around your head like this, you know.
Absolutely.
And you're just you're stuck.
Yeah, I mean, our only ability to communicate it is to point out the contradictions of what the Matrix says it's doing, and then show tangible evidence, reality of it's doing the actual opposite, right? So, right. So critical people are becoming awake, as we can see. I mean, there's incredible. I think there's more, tons of dissension. I mean, there was that statistic that people only approve of Congress of 10%.
Right.
But we're not able to organize.
Right. It
so
doesn't result in the action that it should.
And even if we do organize, that's what our action and reaction here is pretty unique, because even if people who could see that we've been organized, there's even division within us.
Right.
Like, for instance, there's this whole, and I think this is where counterintelligence is really working. And I don't mean to take you off the subject, just real quick. Like 9/11. Was there, 9/11 Pentagon, did a plane hit it or a missile hit it? Now, I think counterintelligence is purposely pushing both narratives to keep infighting, so to speak. But if
who has the correct theory when really the correct theory is irrelevant to the point that we've had our government subverted. Right.
So the analogy, which I think is fantastic, which the Wachowski brothers do in V for Vendetta, is just pushing the one domino that starts to spread out all the dominoes. So all the critical thinkers have to get, whether they have to give and take in their mind, that we have to get together on one domino, which is that our government's absolutely been subverted and it's been taken over by this sociopathic money
cabal.
system. This cabal. If we don't get together and figure out how to all together just push that one domino, they keep us divided. But they have all this COINTELPRO.
Well, it's so much deeper than just COINTELPRO. I mean, you have take language, for example.
Right.
I mean, language has been subverted itself. So we may be saying the same thing in our heads, but because of the words that we speak and the different connotations that exist in each word and in different cultures and subcultures within the broader society, you know, we have lost our ability to really come to some consensus about things because of the obfuscation that has been perpetrated within just the human language. And then extrapolating out from that all of the systems that are built as an extension of that. So
absolutely.
I mean, that is what we're trying to overcome. But you know, I just wanted to comment one more thing about my observations coming from, you know, the communist China to JFK. Okay, so on our flight back, you know, we went from Japan to Beijing, and then from Beijing to JFK International Airport in New York City. And again, Beijing, the airport was glistening. It was seemed to be brand new, very high ceilings, very efficiently run, and no security protocol that really seemed to, it at least didn't violate my sense of human rights. I mean, one could argue that we should be freer than even a metal detector, but I'm okay with the metal detector. Like, that's really not too invasive for me, and that's really all I had to go through when I went through China. But the other thing was, I noticed, you know, you talk about how, you know, America has an elected government. We elect these people. We have freedom of choice. You know, you can always complain about whatever system, and at least you have freedom of speech. Okay, no, we don't. No, we don't.
It's a total frock.
In China, you're in front of a security booth, and they, at least they have this, okay? Imagine you're at the passport table. You have the security guard in uniform and badge and everything, but then in front of them, there's a digital machine that has their employee number on it, and then you have a smiley face, a middle of the ground face, and then a frowny face. And you can at least give your feedback as to how you were treated, and that will be tied to whatever performance metric, you know, is given to that for that particular employee. Okay, I'm not even saying this is a, you know, a great idea that we should adopt. You know, I don't necessarily even agree with the government's involvement in private airline industry security. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, we hear so much propaganda about China and Chinese communist government and how authoritarian they are. The point I'm making is that it is worse in America, where it's supposed to be free, where it's supposed to be, you know, easy and non-oppressive. And you get to America, and you have these TSA agents who are barely high school graduates who get a badge and a blue shirt, and they think they can grab your testicles, and if you complain about it, you're a domestic terrorist. Whereas you go to China, and if they lip off to you, you can at least press the frown button. Right. Okay? So then I fly from JFK. I fly from Beijing to JFK. You know, New York City, the greatest capitalist, you know, what do you call it? Just the epicenter of commerce in the entire globe.
Free market.
Free market. You know, it's just the wonder of the Western world, right? And so I go in there. You got low ceilings.
Right.
You got fluorescent lights. You have nets. They actually have nets between sections. You have endless security checks. I mean, you go to customs. You have to do an automated passport check. There are security guards there barking at you as you come into the country. You walk through, you go check your bag, and then you go from the bag check, and then you go into the TSA line. There are people employed by the TSA or the airline standing in line asking you about your ticket, and everybody's standing in line just completely miserable. So I'm in flip-flops, and of course I refuse the naked body scanner. And I go up there, and they say, you know, I say, come on through. And I said, I'm not going through that. And they say, well, you're going to have to take your shoes off. And I have flip-flops on. I said, no, I'm not doing that either. And so, you know, it's all hierarchical. So the person I refuse, he's not actually able to think for himself and say,
like a robot.
Like a robot. So he says, oh, you know, the guy is on a higher pay grade. Come on over. So then this other guy comes up. He's like, yo, man. I mean, he's real tough, like New York guy, you know, black fella. And he's like, yo, man, why you want to take off your shoes? And I was like, Look, man, I don't even take off my flip-flops in the locker room. You think I'm going to take them off here in the airport? There's thousands of people walking through here barefoot. I'm not going to get a foot fungus, and what do you think my flip-flop's going to do? You think it's made of plastic explosives? I've flown hundreds of times, well, maybe not hundreds of times, but dozens of times in America. Never a single incident to indicate that I might blow something up. And
they had to get medical approval now.
Medical approval. So he's like, all right, man. Well, I'll get you some paper towels. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So I always challenge him. I try to push the limits, So
and that's what it's about. It's about pushing back the authority, fight the power.
I mean, it feels ridiculous, and I feel like a spectacle, and at a certain level I am, but I'm a spectacle anyways if I get a pat down. So I made this guy bring me paper towels for me to put my feet on. He laid them down. Now he looks kind of silly, doesn't he? Because he has to put the paper towels, and then he takes my flip-flops that I bought in Thailand and puts them through the x-ray machine. And I'm just trying to, illustrate for people how silly this all is, how ridiculous it is, and any kind of,
Well, it's not going. I'll tell you one thing. All this is not going to be ridiculous when either we're in a civil war right now. We're under martial law right now. All this is not going to seem ridiculous at all. It's going to justify these collectivists when they do a false flag and blame it on domestic terrorists, or actually natural-born domestic terrorists decide to do something, and this whole world is going to change. We are. I can't stress it enough. We are definitely we're on a road to martial law, complete intrusion. The Constitution suspended. It'll be similar to the coup d'état that just happened in Thailand.
I mean, I did read about that as I returned actually. But do you think that there's any kind of forthcoming announcement about that? I mean, we're already there. We are already there.
Yeah, I mean, they've built it's similar to just building. They've basically have taken all our energy and our resources and use it to build this military infrastructure to support this new change that we're going through, that we're going to go through. There's no way around it. The whole system is set up for it. We're gonna be in a whole new world, and everyone is going to domestic terrorism is going to justify it, and people are going to be happy that it's happening. We were talking earlier that I try to monitor Department of Defense, their media newsroom. They have a YouTube. It's very useful information. And Hagel right now, the Secretary of Defense, is going on this incredible tour, promoting American exceptionalism. And I was just watching some of it, and the people acquiescing to the propaganda. And I think we're at an incredible juncture where we're just basically accepting. Maybe it's similar to the mafia times back in New York, early 18th century, where people just agreed the mafia runs it. That's the way it is. I'm not going to be able to change it. I'm just glad I'm paying the mafia instead of I'm against the mafia. And I think that's what's happening slowly but surely. People like you and me, we've absolutely outed ourselves through this digital record system that now is completely justified. I say, if you look at the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, China, there was always called a hot purge. And before they took over, they really took over power. They eliminated all the counter political leaders in opposition. Do I think I'm absolutely possible? I can't prove it, but I've had. I know COINTELPRO exists on truth-seeking boards. I've seen it. They have techniques. I've seen them show up at my InfoWars meetings that I used to have. I thought I had a group of federal agents, but can I prove it? No. But that's part of this whole incredible gambit that we're in, is that organic mental illness, dysfunction, paranoia is meeting actual engineered this engineered takeover, and you can't tell the difference. And that is because we have been behaviorally modified in a Skinner box to be exactly where we are right now. What you and me are talking, they absolutely know it. We're not catching them by surprise one bit. I actually think they're trying to push a civil war. They would rather have a natural domestic terrorist action than them trying to false flag one.
Well, they have incredible information collection strategies. It's interesting the hypocrisy that exists between us wanting to know things that we pay for and them not revealing that information, but then using our money to build systems which get all of our information for free.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's absolutely optimism. I mean, most optimized capitalistic system I've ever seen. They actually take our money, get themselves rich in the meantime, build their infrastructure, take care of their prodigy for the next 200 years, and we completely volunteer and enslave ourselves. Absolutely enslave ourselves.
Well, yeah. I mean, Randy Stroud talked about that at length in our interview, and we do have to come around to the concept that we were born into this before we ever had a choice in even understanding it. I mean, we're just trying to get people to make that choice to look at this stuff, okay? Yeah. Now, the stuff exists whether they look into it or not, but the point is that, when you're born, you are considered a human resource. Your future labor is promised to someone else.
Absolutely.
And they have actuaries and algorithmic mathematical calculations. They have mass data collection software and capability and infrastructure. They know who you are. They know where you are. They know where you came from. They have your DNA.
Right. They took your blood.
Unique, universal, signature.
They patent your genes. They patent our intellectual property. We can't do anything legal outside of the controlled legal system. It's really amazing stuff. I mean, it's really incredible stuff how we've become intermeshed, interdependent onto this machine. I have no other way of explaining it. And I was telling some friends this, that we're actually we're on multiple wars. One of the wars we're in is that it's man versus machine, and we're being we're being terraformed to work with AI.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and actually that reminds me, I wanted to mention this on the Bull City Bulletin because it is a local issue and something that we all need to consider. Raleigh and Durham, for the most part, are Agenda 21 controlled. They pride themselves on becoming 21st century cities, which means acquiescing to the global government program and rolling out the regulatory code known as Codex Alimentarius, which basically signs everyone into poverty, relative poverty, because there will be different grades of wealth, but the basic premise is that you will conform or you will be eliminated. And I work in downtown Raleigh, so every once in a while, I go outside and walk, try to get some sun, or I'll go grab a bite to eat or whatever. But I'm always around the Capitol, which is interesting because it's the capital of the state, not just City Hall for Raleigh. And I was just walking around, and there was a drone, a quadrotor drone, flying around the Capitol, in and out of the columns of the building.
Thank God they're protecting me.
Well, the interesting thing about this was I could not even see the person controlling it. I'm not opposed to the existence of drones. Okay, I've had a remote control helicopter. You know, you can buy them on the free market. They have beneficial purposes, but the point is that this technology is being sold and licensed to be used by federalized law enforcement for the benefit of protecting us against domestic terrorists. Now, if they have all this information about what, you know, you and me are saying on Bull City Bulletin, they may consider that, you know, potential domestic terrorism. And so,
absolutely,
you know,
radical. This is, I mean, they just announced more money to fight domestic terrorism because they're afraid that the internet is radicalizing people.
Yeah, by radical, you know, basically waking them up to the truth of what's going on,
or at the least questioning the government. So of course they know all this. They have this all planned. Listen, it's a simple analogy. If I've got you under a con, I know the con can't last forever. If it does, well, that's great. But I'm prepared for you to wake up that everything around you I've told you is a lie. So it's taken you the years it takes you to do that. I have it set up for when you're about to get awakened and radicalized to the oppression.
Yeah, it's kind of like if there's a inconvenient beehive, you know, near your property or something, and you go to knock it down, you make a plan before you do that.
You're right, yeah, exactly.
You know, you don't just go knock it down. You may have a water hose, or you may have like an escape route or something.
That's why
you make a plan.
That's why every federal agency now is being armed and trained about domestic terrorism. That's why we have the NSA gathering all information and you and I are just voluntarily outing ourselves. I mean, I warn people. Listen, if you take to heart what I'm telling you, I wouldn't document anything. I mean, truth is going to absolutely have to hang underground, and it's not like we haven't repeated this cycle before. Back in days of antiquity, to even have free speech or free thought, people had to gather underground to talk about stuff because the normal environment is so is so conditioned to be paranoid, not to speak against authority.
Right.
And that's what's happening now. It's a total incredible security net, one that we've never seen, where you're going to have drones listening to your audio, which they already have. I mean, cameras everywhere, which they're already doing. The artificial intelligence analyzing what you're saying on the phone, typing, your actions, your behaviors. It's the most incredible mind control net I've ever seen, and it's affecting people's behavior.
Right. And now to support what you're saying, you know, you're not just you know, spouting a bunch of BS.
I'm not just paranoid.
I've pulled up the Information Sharing and Analysis Center in North Carolina, a global approach. Can you see this?
Yes, I can.
The state response, the North Carolina Information and Analysis Center.
Yep.
Okay, so prior to 9/11, which we know was that inside job,
right?
Several law enforcement agencies had pieces of the puzzle that could have foretold the events, which is actually true. We did have the intelligence, but it wasn't acted upon. Okay, right. That's all true.
Yep.
But is it because they didn't tie the agencies and the information together? Oh, that's the response. We need fusion centers, which were created to fill this void. Okay, North Carolina officially opened its fusion center, the North Carolina Information Sharing and Analysis Center, in September 2006. So this is a long-term program to basically facilitate the transmission of information from agency to agency.
Well, it's to really to centralize all the authority, the military authority. It's to centralize under one command and
under continuity of government, right?
Right. It's going to be a military command. So you're really just going to have the sociopaths now have the ability to control everything and dictate law. It's going to be, oh, there I am.
Look at all these bad guys. That looks like you, Eric. Oh, that's funny.
There's you.
Yep, white guy with a mustache.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
No, but look, later in this this PowerPoint they've developed, they talk about how the different agencies who cooperate with this initiative.
Look at all these resources.
Yeah, all the partner agencies, all of these different.
Look at that.
Look, North Carolina community colleges.
Absolutely.
Okay, so your college is communicating. They're cooperating. The Durham County Sheriff's Office, the Raleigh Police Department,
Look at that.
North Carolina Department of Agriculture. So if you're growing vegetables in your backyard and chickens, you might be growing marijuana. You might need a SWAT team to come by and check that garden out for you.
It's safe to say that if any place is getting federal funding or is involved in these big multinational corporations, they're part of the agenda.
Look! They're not even shy about who they're training for. Sovereign citizens.
Yeah.
Human intelligence.
That'd be us.
That'd be us. People who are
we're human.
Really thinking and talking. Anarchists. People who like Randy Stroud. These people don't believe that the government has jurisdiction over their soul. Oh, aren't they evil? We need to share information and have joint training with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies.
Like I said, right now and this is why we're absolutely moving into dangerous times really quickly. You and I could say, well, we're not evil right now, but once all these whether there be false flag or organic formations, once these domestic terrorists start taking over council buildings, start assassinating politicians, killing police officers, all this stuff, everyone's going to be, thank God they've been preparing all these years for this stuff, and if you and I talk about it, it's going to be a different tone. It's much, like right now we can laugh and the sarcasm because it's not in our face right now, but it's going to be an absolutely different tone, and I mean, I don't even know what's going to be like. If I look through history, it's what history has shown us. What happens when a tyranny really moves into high escalation? They're getting ready to limit information. Listen, I drive Glenwood every day, and the checkpoints are increasing, the police are increasing. We're totally in the beginning throes of a military state.
Well, hey, what's so bad about the military, right? They get in uniform to defend our freedom and to protect us. So what are you so scared about the military for? Well, we did prepare a video for this broadcast to demonstrate what the military is all about and like how they protect us. Let's take a look at that video. Let me know that you can see this.
Okay.
Can you?
No. Well, while you're saying that,
can you see?
I couldn't see it. You got me unmuted.
Can you see it now?
No.
And you click the YouTube app?
There it is.
All right. unmute yourself.
Yeah, that was heavy.
Yeah, I mean, protect your freedom. Right?
I hear a video in the background.
Still?
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Mez with me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
You know, let me show you. They're doing that now, but let me give you an example of how they're doing that now. When they pull over a poor person because they've got a light out, and they probably got a warrant for their arrest because the way the police state works is it just manufactures all these warrants. So when a poor person gets arrested, their car gets impounded, they get thrown in jail. Any type of job or any type depends on their family. They have the system right now is crucifying the poor right now. The way as much resources as we're putting in to the poor and the mentally ill, we're absolutely, I mean, just barely keeping them together. Barely keeping them together. And yet all this energy we're sending into our military to go overseas when we should stop all foreign activity and build manufacturing jobs at home, stop this war on drugs, and we need to give people hope and some type of vision. People don't have any hope or vision. The only hope they have is survival into the military complex. And right now the system is just protecting the rich. I mean, and it's out of control. It's out of control.
Yeah, I agree. So to contrast and also support what you're saying, I want to play this other video where a considering, can you? I think I went off. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah, I wanted to just play this video where this special ops guy from the Marines, I think, wanted to give advice for those considering joining the military, because we do spend more than all other countries on this planet combined on the military-industrial complex. So, you know, I'm not a proponent of welfare per se, or public education per se, or subsidies per se, but if we're going to spend the money somewhere, we ought to spend it home instead of on weaponry that is used to destroy other people's property in other countries. So, you know, that's one place where I could probably agree with like a quote leftist position, which is, you know, the military spending is not productive whatsoever. I think it should be taken out of the gross domestic product because it doesn't represent any value that's been produced.
That's right.
I mean, what value is a missile that goes and destroys, you know, millions of dollars worth of property? There's no value at all for anybody, for any of humanity. Not the Americans who built the missile, not the people who you know, got the money from the missile being produced, nor the people who received the missile in another country. So
the value is for the sociopaths to control their system.
Exactly.
And a quick analogy on what you were saying, as you don't support welfare state, you know, and I get that, but what critical thinkers have to realize, once they start seeing that we're absolutely intermeshed with, and I would analogy is cancer. The whole body's full of cancer. We have to be surgeons. We can't.
Right.
You're right. We have to surgically save the vital organs and figure out what we got to cut out. And right now, with our country is decimated, man. Let me tell you, decimated. I mean, like Gollum style level. I mean, there's a lot of mythology with Zionism and creating golems, you know, like some mysticism with creating golems. And I have to say that is where we're at. The streets are absolutely decimated. The poor are so mentally ill. We are the prison system right now is making money off the system creating the mental illness and the poor and the dysfunctional, and we're culling this entire species. And right now, locally, they're figuring out how to cut Medicaid, use it better, and then you have the president, giving $1 billion to the more war. It's such contradictory stuff. I basically see the contradiction everywhere, and that's really what you got to do. Is you got to to fight the power. You got to grab these authorities, and you got to keep them still and really push them into the foundations of thinking. And once you're down there, you can expose the contradictions.
Right. So, you have this government who preaches this lofty word about sustainability, and, you hear Bill Bell, even in his State of the City address, talk about how he wants to end poverty in Durham. And so what tools does the government have in their toolbox to end poverty? Well, the only thing that they can really do is create paperwork and code and procedures and law, quote unquote law. So what they do is they just make it illegal, right? Make it illegal for people to be homeless and for people to be poor, and they'll find some food, they'll find a home, and that's what we see here in Raleigh. This is just down the road from where I work. This is where I used to park, actually, on this corner. And last year, this church group who would usually go out there and give biscuits away to the homeless, they were basically accosted by a police officer who, said it was illegal. It's against code. You don't have a permit to give away biscuits. Don't you know you got to pay $1,800 or $800 or whatever it is? And it shouldn't even be $5 for a permit to give away biscuits. It was basically unaffordable for this group to pay the permit and give away biscuits, but the only alternative, and you do have freedom of choice, by the way. You have the freedom to choose to go to jail by ignoring the police officer's illegal orders to not give away biscuits. You can give them away, but then it will just arrest you. And according to the police officer, that's just the way it is, and if you don't like it, you have to go to the city council, who only gives you 3 minutes to talk and won't act on anything that you say anyway. So,
it's a very effective defensive system. It's bureaucracy, it's code, it's regulations, and it's so enormous that no one can think on their own. The individual is not empowered to think on their own and self-analyze the environment. The state is thinking for you. So right. Whether people believe it or not, you're all conforming to being plugged into artificial intelligence. You're losing the capacity to think for yourself, losing the capacity to be a sovereign individual, and we're moving into this incredible the new form of national socialism, and it's just amazing. It's amazing stuff. In the meantime, we're only providing band-aids for the poor and the mentally ill, and listen, I mean, it's so easy to, all you have to do is shut off the food stamps for 3 days, and you will have some of the most incredible riots on the streets that you've ever seen.
Yeah,
and,
well,
I mean, the job I work, absolutely in the front lines where I'm seeing the culling of our species. And once most of the, and I'll have to say, most of the people involved in the nanny state, it's intergenerational. But once you're involved in the state and you have a felony, I mean, you can't get a job when you're a felony, and you're being provided your housing and your food by the state, it is almost impossible to get out. It is so difficult. And the way the chemicals are used right now, I mean, that's one of the biggest forefronts of the war, disrupting our natural electrical, biological system. So we are not able to think, we're not able to get healthy. I mean, plus the mind control of the organized newspeak systems, analogous to Aldous Huxley. It's really incredible stuff. We're seeing the evolution, the epitome of tyranny.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about band-aids for the poor, and I wanted to touch on this issue, which I actually discovered on Saturday. I make a habit of going to the Durham Farmers Market, whether that's the southeast one or the one downtown. I am a believer in independent agriculture as opposed to big pharma. I mean, excuse me, big agri. Big pharma is another subject, but
they're the same.
Yeah, they are. They are basically the same. I mean, they're interdependent on one another. But the whole basis of the welfare system is you have an underprivileged class who, for whatever reason, can't manage to feed themselves. So the answer is we take from the rich and give to the poor, so to speak, and that's going to solve the problem. Well, for a government who's so hooked on these buzzwords like sustainability, you would think that they would spend the money that they do steal from the quote-unquote rich and spend it on education and maybe some property for these people to actually grow their own crops and build their own future and feed themselves, instead of what I would consider to be an unsustainable solution, which is to simply take the money that was earned legitimately by other people and waste it, not waste it, but spend it on someone else's nutritional needs. And I was at the farmer's market this Saturday, and I buy eggs from the same guy every week, and I noticed in his register he had these wooden nickels with the Durham Farmers Market logo on it. And I was very curious about this because when I go to the farmer's market, I will always bring either a silver dollar, like this Liberty dollar, or I'll bring some silver dimes, which were just regular dimes not too long ago, but they were made of 90% silver. And I will simply ask the farmers if they would accept this as payment for any of their vegetables. And I do this as a kind of a psychological exercise to see where they're at in terms of commerce and exchange, because this is money. This is real money. It's more valuable than the face value of a dollar, but it also represents a tangible good that preserves wealth and would certainly buy, with the exchange rate between silver and fiat Federal Reserve notes, it would certainly buy a lot more vegetables than my dollars will. So anyways, I see this nickel in the register, and I ask him about it, and he says, yeah, that's the new EBT SNAP benefit program, which just rolled out. And I'm like, well, what's going on there? What's the deal? And he says, well, anybody who has SNAP benefits can buy these tokens, and then they can spend it here at the farmer's market, and that's the only place they can buy it. I mean, spend it. And I certainly get the argument that if we're going to have a welfare program like this where they can satisfy their nutritional needs, it's better that they spend it at the farmer's market and the farmers get that profit than them go to Walmart and get quote unquote government cheese, which contributes to the mental illness and the chemical biological problems that we have. But my point is, my problem with this is that wooden nickel that they buy, they basically buy them from the SNAP program, then they spend them at the farmer's market, then the farmers take the wooden nickel and go back to the SNAP program, and they get double face value. So for one wooden nickel dollar, they get 2 fiat dollars in return. And on this Herald Sun report, they say that this is going to require them to raise about $20,000 to run this matching program at both markets for just 1 year. Okay, so what's sustainable about giving these folks double their money on an alternative currency, which is what that wooden nickel constitutes? And that's the main point I wanted to make, was that this wooden nickel is literally an alternative currency that people who are dependent on the government get to use. But if I go there with a silver dollar, which is just a piece of metal, and ask, not only do virtually nobody know what I'm talking about, but it's actually illegal, if you look into it, for me to make that transaction, although I have successfully, but under the covers, of course, black market, bartering. I'm such a domestic terrorist to even suggest such a thing. But what's your comments on that? What do you think about that whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a sign of the cognitive disassociation that's going on, that we cannot even use precious metals to exchange for goods, which has been used for thousands of years, and it allows the IRS to send in their SWAT teams to arrest you. I mean, it's amazing stuff. I mean, basically, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yeah, because the government gets to offer an alternative currency from their own dollars. I mean, why not just give them dollars in their EBT card instead of this whole wooden nickel thing? I mean, it is an alternative currency.
I mean, isn't there an old saying, don't accept any wooden nickels?
Of course. But that's the irony of the whole thing.
I mean, are they... I always see this all the time, that if I turn on the TV, I just see the system, the authoritative collective system, mocking truth seekers and mocking our species as complete morons, as complete idiots. I mean, they look at us like some slavish Mongols that can't even breathe. And I'll tell you, there's plenty of them. I mean, just slavish, mental illness, covered in drama and dysfunction. I mean, the amount of domestic dysfunction is incredible. And all we need to do is look at all these mass shooters that are happening, all this crazy drama. We have been absolutely conquered. We have been hollowed out. We are given our thoughts. It's just and all for what? I just it really comes down to energy, and it just baffles. It's amazing to see how our energy is being taken away from us, used in these completely dysfunctional systems, and we are just left completely in poverty. And it doesn't have to be like this at all. There's no reason why there's any hunger. You just need to create gigantic football stadiums of hydroponics. You could absolutely feed everything. This whole area used to be agriculture. We could grow our own cotton, make our own clothes. I mean,
I'll give you another example. Okay, so I went out to get pizza with my mom and my aunt and my fiance on Friday, and we went to Pomperii in downtown Durham. The pizza was very good. Pizza was delicious. They grow their own basil in the restaurant. But I was just noticing that, a pizza, a little, 12-inch pizza, which is just dough and cheese and sauce. It was like $14 plus a drink, and we got an appetizer, which was just a little square of ricotta cheese with honey on it and some crackers. Okay, so we eat the cheese and the crackers, and we have a little bit of cheese left over, and we're out of crackers. So the waiter comes over. We've already spent literally $50 on pizza and drinks and everything. Probably $10 worth of ingredients at max. I mean,
right.
You know how cheap flour is.
Well, and even just any restaurant or anything involved with food, the only way they can even sustain any kind of economic vitality is by buying genetically modified foods, because the agriculture business or the military complex, or whatever you want to call it, uses our tax money to subsidize all their production, so they just could drive these low-grade foods for free. That's why if you ate a bird, I mean, most of the poor survive off fast food because it's actually cheaper than going to.
Right.
And so all the food is made with this biological hazard. I mean, one of the big points in this whole war is our biology. The way our biology works, we are incredibly chemically fragile.
Yes.
Okay? We're incredibly chemically. We need a real pure system. This is the truth of nature. But what's happened ever since the 50s with DuPont and the whole military complex was better living through chemistry.
Right.
And as nonstop. So to even eat organic food is so expensive. The poor can't do it. And probably the SNAP program that you're showing me with the Durham is. I would love to find out who actually tried to get that through. And I bet you anything, it was probably a big ordeal to try to get this common sense human relations idea to actually use EBT at the farmers market.
Yeah, you see this programming in government where they're obviously consciously or unconsciously reading off of the the UN's program, Agenda 21.
Yep.
And it does manifest in some what you might call common sense government actions. I think farmers markets are a beautiful thing. I think if you're going to have a SNAP system, allowing people to spend that money at the farmers market is also smart. But
what you're basically talking about is the essence of lying. Liars use half-truths, and that's
right.
That's a lot of the confusion comes from, and how sociopaths disarm humans.
Well,
right?
you have these shirts, and I actually own one myself. It says "Sustainable Independent Durham." Okay, Durham is not independent. All right, it's dependent on the government's permission. If you're going to be at the farmers market, you can't just be a farmer. You have to get a license. You have to get a permit. You have to be approved by their board, some governmental authority which is sanctioned by the city government to actually be in that area. You can't. Let me just give this example. I started collecting art from this guy at the farmers market in Durham. He makes clay faces. I should bring one out. They're beautiful. And he was a Vietnam veteran, and he would be there every so often on a weekend. And I began to collect this stuff, and then I wanted to buy some for someone's birthday, and I asked him if we could meet on a day that's not the farmers market day, just meet me downtown and I'll pick some up. So we met on the corner, and he made a comment about whether he was going to get in trouble for meeting me on this corner to sell me clay art. Okay, and this is a Vietnam veteran who's scared that some government bureaucrat is going to give him a penalty or a fee for selling me art on a street corner that he already sells art on Saturday when it's sanctioned. So, it's great that we have a farmers market, but we don't need the government's permission to have a farmers market. We need to just have it. We need to just do it. If you're a farmer, if you're an artist, why can't you set up a table and sell your wares? Why do you need a permit to sell lemonade on the corner?
Listen, less even doing any commerce, we can't even assemble and have free thought and free discussion without it being a problem.
Right. You have a zone for that.
Absolutely.
A First Amendment zone.
Listen, if any leader even cared about liberty, what liberty is, free thought and free association amongst some socialization would be completely supported. You would be getting this conversation we're having would be everywhere. It'd be coming out of the media, the news stream, everywhere, and people would be. We wouldn't be in this state we're in. But now, any type of free thinking association on liberty is deemed domestic terrorism, and all you need to do is just look outside your door and see how we've volunteered for this entrainment, this enslavement, under the guise of half-truths, philanthropy, because that's how liars work. They present half-truths, disarms the empathic human, and we're completely trained. It's incredible stuff.
Well, on that note, I think we ought to conclude this session, the fourth episode of the Bull City Bulletin. Look on our website for updates. Join our Facebook page. Comment on the video. Join the discussion. And if you think something should be changed about the site, or you'd like us to cover a specific topic, feel free to write in.
Absolutely.
We've got an email. It's bullcitybulletin@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to contribute, or you have are a local and you have an experience or something that you'd like to talk live about, we're definitely open to meeting with people, discussing things, and just getting the truth out there. So if you have something to contribute, you're interested in participating, just reach out to us, and we'll definitely get back in touch. You have any final thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, we love whistleblowers. We'll keep it anonymous. But what you said, I mean, if anyone's interested in us analyzing certain areas and trying to get to the truth of how reality works, please suggest. I'm more happy to accommodate.
All right. Until next time.